How are you guys doing?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Doing great, man. Excited to be here.
Nice. So, over the past weeks, also with our friends at the DeFi Dojo, Danny has been very vocally bullish about Seda. So maybe for our very DeFi native audience, but who has taken a little more of a backseat on the technical side of development in the space, could you guys give a brief intro to Seda, what you're building, and how you fit in the overall landscape of oracles?
Sure thing. So, um, I'd say that Seda is so. Just to maybe start at step one, which is like, what is an oracle? So, an oracle is a system that allows smart contracts to access data that would normally not be available to them on the blockchain. And so examples of this are, for example, lending protocols or perps that need to decide when to liquidate position, how to collateralize positions, how to fill positions, etc. And so um, how this historically worked is you have either centralized or decentralized parties that dictate what type of data they serve to the user and on what chains that is available. And so what Seda did was kind of flip that around and say, hey, listen, we're working in like a permissionless environment where people want to experiment, people want to build permissionless applications, and they don't want to have to talk to a centralized party or person in order to build their application, right? It sort of defeats the purpose. It sort of like creates this um, like kingmaker scenario as well, where oracles choose which chains they support, and like those chains get developers building there because it's like a core necessity to the ecosystem. And so what we did at Seda is sort of like, yeah, say like, okay, how can we flip this around and build a system that is completely permissionlessly accessible independently of what chain it's on or what data somebody needs. And so the idea came to this product, which is summarized as programmable Oracle infrastructure. And so what it allows you to do is developers can come in and sort of like build their own feeds and access them from any network. So any data, any chain, very fast. Yeah, I think that boils down sort of like how we position ourselves, I think, on like a broader landscape.
How did you guys find your niche and your differentiation from these other oracles, and how particularly does that fit into Hyperliquid and the surrounding ecosystem?
Yeah, so we found Seda because out of necessity. We were building in the prediction market space on an Alt L1, and there was no Oracle live there yet. And there was an Oracle that said that they were going to be live, and they said, give us 9 months and give us $1 million, and we'll do it. And I think that $1 million was paid, not by us, but by this Alt L1. But yeah, 9 months, like we're a startup, right? We need data tomorrow. So that was just not there was not an acceptable answer to us. And so we started building our own Oracle infrastructure, and from there started to sort of like extrapolate, like, hey, if we are already, this was in 2019, 2020. So like it's one of the first Alt L1s. And so we're thinking, okay, if the number of alternative execution environments is going to go up, and the number of developers building there is going to go up, and in general, the number of developers is going to go up, and the amount of the diversity of applications is going to go up, like the incumbent Oracle systems are way too robust for sort of like that future, right? And so to us, that just was an opportunity to pounce on that design space and see if we could come up with a system that didn't suffer from those same ailments as the initial set of oracles that we saw. So yeah, it was purely out of necessity. We needed it, we wanted it, and we yeah, decided to build it ourselves.
That's
When I
amazing.
look at Seda on CoinGecko, it says that you guys are an IBC-based contract for your token. Can you dive a little deeper into your whole architecture and how that works and how your Oracle service can be integrated?
Yeah. So Seda as a native asset is originates and born on our own chain, which is the Seda chain, which indeed is a Cosmos SDK build chain, but it's not built for the Cosmos ecosystem per se. So it's Cosmos is a means to an end, just as I believe some of the Hyperliquid it's built on also like some alt L1's code, but it of course it doesn't live within that ecosystem, right? It's like its own ecosystem. We try to do the same, and so the way it works is we have this L1, sort of like the data originator, if you will, and from there, we've built our own distribution system, which allows you to prove Oracle state from any L1 or L2 using signature verification. So data sort of like streams in to the Seda chain. There it is signed and formatted in a way that it's provable. And then from there, you can sort of like ingest it on any L1 or L2. And so these feeds are sort of like almost like smart contracts that live on our chain, but it's custom built software. Um, to add to that, yeah, okay. Let's drop it there for now.
Yeah. Maybe Danny, since you are the vocal Seda bull and you also brought Seda to my attention, can you give us a little bit of the background how you came across Seda and what you find exciting?
Yeah, sure. My Seda lure is that I was at Consensus Austin in 2023, and I took a picture of myself like drinking next to the pool, and one of the Seda guys messaged me or like left a comment that was like, "Oh, cool, dude, we're staying at the same hotel. We should catch up sometime or something." And so I DM'd him, and then the next day met with a couple of the guys in the lobby and just sat down and got like a quick 30-minute elevator pitch about Seda. I'm running the DeFi Dojo's validator. We validate tons of Cosmos chains. So like initially I was thinking like, oh, maybe we'll spin up a Seda node eventually. And like, that's how I was thinking about it. But then I followed along Seda's journey. And I felt sort of like about 5 weeks ago, sort of like the momentum starting to shift from, I'm a trader. So like from a trading perspective, felt the momentum shifting. I really love what Matt has done on like the branding side. Like the team just seems like so awesome and so cool online.
Yeah,
Then
it looks like a
it
really
really
large team for like an Oracle or like a more of a infra backend type of project. If I look at your about side, there are like 20 people on there, so it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think the last thing was seeing all their success in Singapore, and really like seeing the Hyperliquid bros sort of like catch on to and start to understand what Seda's doing. And so yeah, I've just followed the last 2 years or more of the journey, and have been excited to be a part of it. I definitely felt like early. Like all of the Seda I own is like on like I can't even trade it. It's like on Seda mainnet and like staking with Crypto Crew. So anyway, shout out to Crypto Crew.
It's just become a little bit easier to move that Seda around. I don't know if you guys saw the announcement, but I think as we started the podcast, we announced an integration with Stargate and
Oh,
Layer Zero.
nice.
So Seda is now an OFT. So it's
And where
easier
where
to move it across different types of L1s.
and where can you bridge to currently? Currently, you're just
Mm,
bridging to ETH and
I
Base.
think we only enabled Hyper EVM for now,
Okay. Oh, cool.
and
Okay.
that's a little wink to the future, obviously.
Right.
Nice.
So there, I mean, there are
Are you
like,
guys going to be tradable on Hyperliquid Spot soon?
Yes.
Nice. So
so
that
this is not just
might
a
be some
rumor;
alpha in
it's
here.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We have everything ready. We're just waiting for some operational things that need to fall into place before we can actually
Do you
start
know?
preparing.
Could you tell us a little bit about like that process? What does it take to get listed spot on Hyperliquid?
Yeah, it's actually quite simple. If you go the layer zero route, which we're doing, it's actually permissionless. So you only have to buy the ticker. And so if you want to be listed on Hyperliquid Spot, I would suggest reaching out to some of the Layer Zero folks who I think would love to show you how to turn your own token into an OFT and um, yeah, point you into the direction of like deploying Spot. It's doable. It's scary, but it's doable.
Okay, cool.
Very nice. We actually received some audience question under one of Danny's posts. So maybe we can dive into these. The first one is, how does Seda ensure the accuracy of the data it provides to on-chain applications, especially during high market volatility? Maybe that question was a hint or like inspired by the recent liquidation cascade on October 10th, where we've seen like both across centralized exchanges and decentralized ones, but more severely on the centralized side of things, that a lot of order books on the perp side got completely eaten up, and some tokens like Atom on Binance went to literal zero over a brief period of time.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I wish they had the transparency that you have on Hyperliquid, where you can just track like, hey, what happened? You know, like nobody knows, right? Only they know. So there is the truthful answer sounds like a cop-out answer, but I am going to explain it further. So the cop-out answer is we don't guarantee that. And the reason why is because we don't necessarily provide a vanilla feed that does X, Y, and Z. So what we have is we build infrastructure that allows devs to either build their own feeds or tell us how their feed should work. And so one of the questions we ask them when deciding these feeds is like, hey, how do you want to handle volatility, right? It's like some perp dexes for certain assets want high volatility. They want high vol due to natural reasons of the asset, maybe very deep liquidity. It's probably already bounded within some margin, and so you can eat the vol and it's okay. But there's also assets that are very manipulatable, right? And so these types of assets, you want to have like super strong volatility dampening and like, you know, things like TWAPs, etc., TWAPs, VWAPs, and sort of like a maximum amount of price deviation per tick. And so we give developers the tools to dictate how that feed should work. And we don't tell you how to do anything, really. We have examples that you can use. But yeah, we are completely non-opinionated about how these instruments should function. And it's all up to the sort of like end developer to, either write it themselves or tell us what they want. And so this is a good segue also into, hey, why do I see you guys over this HIP-3 narrative, right? And the reason why is because we're getting all of these super creative, exotic, often completely novel vehicles for financialization, which require really specific rules as to how data should be fed into it. And so no other Oracle can serve this. It will take them way too long to design a feed and get this feed live, either on their validator set or on their, get the data, source the data from a bunch of data providers. But with us, you can just come and write the feed yourself, and it becomes accessible instantly. And so there's a lot of room for experimentation. There's a lot of very fun design things that we're doing with some of these like more novel HIP-3 markets. And so, yeah, I think that's really where we found like huge product market fit, and why we found huge product market fit. And the reason why I said this on another recording the other day, I believe that because HIP-3 allows you to spin up markets and host them on a live front end and parameterize it enough that it is that it leaves room for creativity, makes it so that people need to differentiate when deploying these markets, and they're expensive, right? So like there's no reason to try to fragment liquidity with another BTC perp or another stocks perp, because you're not going to get any liquidity and it's expensive. So like, why would you do it, right? And so there's new primitives that are trying to get to market and try to get attract liquidity and volume by being new. And these people need like highly customizable data feeds. And this is sort of our bread and butter, and we're kind of the only one doing this. So that's why,
Can you
yeah.
What would
Can
you
you
say
give
about,
a practical example what that would look like, maybe specifically in the context of hyperliquid and
Mhm.
HIP free, just for the
So
non-technical guys who are just
for
like
sure.
using DeFi but don't really deal with in-depth understanding of Oracles? Like
Yeah.
how does Seda affect the user experience, bottom line?
So there's two on the nose examples I would like to try and showcase here. The first one is something we call like it's like a 24/7 stock feed. So stocks obviously trade mainly over like a time window every day, which is like some EST time window. But there are vehicles to determine some sort of pricing reference outside of the normal trading hours. And so perps are 24/7 on-chain perps. There's no way to pause a perp during off-market hours, right? And so you need to come up with ways to determine an Oracle price for those closing time that at least creates some sort of indication of what's happening. And existing feeds only have either the during market open, post market, overnight, or pre market times. And with Seda, you can sort of like stitch all of these together in like one coherent feed. And for example, over the weekend, you can also then say, hey, listen, there's no data whatsoever. We'll just take the last known reference price of when the market was open, and we're gonna just take some of the and we weigh in a little bit of the trading that we've seen on our market to see so like tick the price slowly up or down, right? So it becomes in part self-referential. So this is quite complex, but it's also never done before, right? I think there's no because there's no 24/7 markets. I think many people are quite grateful that there's no 24/7 markets, and so I think that's a pretty obvious example of like how Seda adds value, sort of like stitching this all together into like one coherent feed that can be ingested by HIP3 in one go. And then the second example is a very exciting one. It's called Global Compute Index. I don't know if you guys heard of it. It's essentially this HIP3 market that's trying to commoditize a unit of compute. And what this means is that you're trying to find a reference to what a unit of compute is worth on average globally and allow people to long or short that price. And as it turns out, people expect the price of that to go down over time, right? But it's actually extremely volatile. They've shown me the numbers, like it's super, super volatile. And it also means that if you are running like a lot of compute, there's no way today to hedge against the cost of that compute. Maybe there's like some beta that you can do, right? Like energy prices, etc. But the exact unit of compute price, the hour of running a GPU cycle, it's not financialized yet. And so they are trying to financialize this. And for that, they need to fetch a lot of data and put it into one single feed and consume that. And that's just like a little bit of a math problem that they can do with our system quite easily. So you just like ingest a bunch of data and then you say, hey, we want to like weigh it in a certain way. And then it just creates one consumable output, which is this, price of a unit of compute. And so these are things that, because they don't exist yet, you need to find a way to stitch this market together, given the existing data that's out there in the world. You can create almost anything, right? There's infinite data points. So there is always a way to get to a certain data outcome. It's just, you need to have the tools, and the tools weren't there yet.
So you could see a project who is buying loads of like compute time, and then they want to go and like sort of like delta neutralize that pain. That's a really interesting use case I haven't heard y'all talk about yet. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's also for Bitcoin miners, for example, right? Like it is really interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, there's like two other things that I would point to that I think are really awesome that you all are doing. One thing is over on Helix on Injective. and that is allowing like perp trading of pre-IPO price for different projects, right? So like Anthropic and SpaceX, all these coins that have like yet to IPO. So that's really awesome. And then secondly, there's a project on Hyperliquid that is allowing you to trade prediction markets with leverage. So I didn't know if like you wanted to like kind of double tap on any of those and tell us like why Seda is uniquely positioned to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody that brings private data prices on chain now. Yeah, we just sourced it really quickly. And yeah, so now we are the only ones, I think, serving that on chain directly. The unique positioning there is like, it's a quite vanilla example with injectives that there's live today, but there's a lot of design space that we're working on how to make that price, as liquidity goes up, how to get the Oracle price to be more dynamic and be updated more, like by maybe ingesting part of the like market prices, volume weighted from like a bunch of people running these perps. And then, yeah, the prediction market one's really fascinating. It's one of those things. Sorry?
Like really, it seems like you guys in the team have always been like really into prediction markets. Like you were saying, like you started in that space, and then like it's something I see Peter and everybody like talking about constantly. So it seems like definitely like a direction that you all want to like focus on and go in. Would you say that or no?
Yeah. I think it's more of a coincidental or like, meant to be full circle moment where we found prediction markets found a lot of hype. And so a lot of people building within this space around the time that we went to mainnet. And so it was just very obvious that like, hey, no Oracle is serving this data yet. All of these APIs are very easy to access from a server, but not from on-chain. And so we are very uniquely positioned to bring this data on chain really quickly. And then we just found a very nice glimpse of initial product market fit there. And I think that put us on the map to then trickle into also the Hyperliquid ecosystem, which was very cool to see. So it's more of a full circle moment than that we were super obsessed about prediction markets still. Like I'm still passionate about what they mean for the world, but it's not something that I think about on a daily basis, basically. So yeah, it's just a cool full circle moment that we started off with prediction markets, needed an Oracle for it, and then end up serving a bunch of prediction market related products with Oracles.
Amazing.
Right. I think we got another few questions. The second one was, what are the biggest challenges the protocol has faced since launching its mainnet, and how is the team addressing them? I think that might be targeted towards integrations into other projects building on Hyperliquid as well. So what's the state of the nation there?
So, I mean, HIP-3 is very new. And so within these HIP-3 markets, there is like, there's not a lot of information. There's not a lot of documentation. And so you have to sort of like, once again, like form your own truth. And so, yeah, honestly, that side of things, like we found really good partners to work with as well. And so that has not been extremely challenging outside of just like the black box that is the Hyperliquid Foundation. It's just like there's nothing you can pull out of that at all that's like helpful. We're planning like HIP-3 got dropped on us without any notice. We had no clue it was coming. We were actually thinking it was Q1 2026 that it would come out. And so, yeah, on the integration sides on HIP-3, I would say there's nothing major yet. It's just like the feeds that people want are really complex. And so that's just a question of like, designing them and working very closely with the teams to make sure you agree on what they will be ingesting and like making sure that the design makes sense. And for that, like, I have to say the quality of builders is pretty insane. They're all very on the level where we're able to have very deep conversation with us and like they understand why the data is important and like there's great sparring partners. Yeah, and so on the other end, it's like, finding product market fit for a company is just isn't always the easiest to do. And so the challenge we were facing in the beginning was like we went to L1s, And because on L1s, their main priority is like finding vanilla feeds, right? Just blue chip DeFi and stuff. And so for blue chip DeFis. And so when we come to them and we're like, hey, listen, you can get any data, it's mostly confusing to them. They're like, yes, but we just want like Bitcoin, ETH, and like, top 20 cryptos and our own coin. And I'm like, yeah, but you can also like get any data. And then they're like, I don't get it. And so like that educational part was really hard. And then finding an ecosystem where everybody immediately understands why that's cool is really nice. And so we can really flourish with an ecosystem such as Hyperliquid. And I think having this happen with sort of like the HIP3 builders is really also showcasing to like other devs and other chains, what the power is of what we build. And it's all just coming together quite brilliantly.
In what segment of data do you see the most growth in the future? Is it like on-chain data? Is it TradFi data being verified on-chain, or is it something more going towards the direction of like the outcome of sports games for like sports betting on-chain via prediction markets, or like verifying weather data of like earthquakes, temperature, wind speeds, etc.? Like, where do you see the most asymmetric growth niche right now?
So now definitely financial data, bringing it on chain. I call it like we're in the era of hyper financialization. And so everything is going to be financialized. And I feel like Hyperliquid will be, or in general, like crypto perp dexes are going to play a very big role in this. I think, however, to make a bit of a bold bet, that in the end, a lot of the data for TradFi and for crypto will actually originate on chain. And so I see a future in which a lot of the data that's ingested on chain comes just from other protocols and other chains. But I think this is still a few years out, right? Like if you get the most liquid markets on chain, then you don't need to reference off-chain data anymore, right? Because you have the most accurate outcome on chain. And so then it's just bridging cross-chain.
Do you personally have like a prediction timeline when price discovery will happen on chain?
So for some assets, it will happen this year. There is no compute index off chain, not one that is financialized and traded. So that's like the new primitives are all popping up now. I would say we get the depth to compete. I don't know. 5 years is like the most optimistic bet I would make.
I mean, I feel like we can see this happening anyway. Like we can see like Base acquiring Echo for almost $400 million. I think that like everyone has sort of thought like raising an ICO is like probably, other than stable coins right now, like the best use of crypto. Or at least like one of the most interesting. So I actually think like we in 2 or 3 years could see projects like SpaceX or Anthropic using like Coinbase to like ICO instead of IPO, and just skip all the like regulatory bullshit at once, right?
I predict that that's what Polymarket will do for first. That's the first sort of like, I think they will do like a hybrid IPO ICO model. I saw one of the investors like very subtly hint at this, and then I was like, oh, that makes total sense. Like also the ICE deal and whatever. And so I think that's really interesting and something that's going to be worked towards. And kind of what we're talking about here to some extent is like, I think the category is called like ICM on crypto now. In crypto,
the internet like capital markets.
Internet capital markets, right? Kind of like raising startup. Yeah, raising startup funding on chain, etc. So I think also like if you want to build towards that future, like one of the most up and coming uses for data on chain will be bridging between a startup's books and revenue, etc., to chains as well, right? Because if they launch a token, it needs to be reflexive on the performance of that startup to some extent, and that again requires some sort of like interaction between chain and startup. And so that is another actually cool bet to make, I think. But yeah, haven't thought about that one much.
Interesting. So could we talk about, I know everyone like online when I was asking like, hey, questions, blah, blah, blah. Like, can we talk about the burn, how how it burns. And I know like Seda has two products, Seda Fast and then Seda Oracles or something. I'm not sure what the other one's called. Butchering it there. But I think I've heard rough numbers online that like 65,000 Seda have been burnt currently. That could be totally wrong. And but it would just be cool to like work with some of the numbers, see like how we can see that, how it works, first of all, and then how we can see the burn mech ramping up over time.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think before we dive into the like burn mechanism, it would be great if you can give a more general overview of the Seda token and its purposes.
Yeah. So the main purpose of Seda as a token is to, like I said, we have this programmability layer between data source or the internet and on-chain applications, right? And so you have somebody needs to do this computation, and in our case, it's like the Seda network, right? And just like in ETH, you pay gas for doing transactions on Ethereum and interacting with smart contracts. You're also paying for computation. And so a large part of the utility of Seda is that it's used for interacting with that sort of like computation aspect, or like, so if you want to query a feed using the Seda chain, you are using Seda in order to query that data. Percentage of that's burned, to answer your question as well. So a percentage of all the 71,000 now has been burned so far. We expect this to grow up very, very bigly. And so that's all through the Seda core product, right? Like the decentralized Oracle, which is most of our integrations fall under right now. But a lot of them are moving to Fast. And so Fast is basically a faster system that bypasses core to a large extent. It uses a lot of the same infra, but it bypasses sort of like the decentralized validator set there. And so it's just that way, just way, way faster, like sub 400 milliseconds, depending on sources, sub 100 milliseconds if it's like really, really, good sources. And like, I believe we had like 60 milliseconds if we are like co-located, 50 milliseconds maybe. And so within that product, I don't know actually if I can talk about how Seda plays into that. I don't think we've released anything on it yet. Have you guys read anything about this? I'm about to leak some stuff. Let's say Seda comes also very much into play within that product, and there is a sort of like a buyback mechanism somewhere hidden in however Fast works.
Fast will be more of like a B2B sort of thing where maybe you'll get paid in USDC or USDT or some native token, and then that will be used to buy Seda back, something like that,
Could
perhaps?
be that's a very good idea. I don't know, maybe.
How do
No,
the economics
I don't know
behind
if we released
oracles
it, so-
work in general? Like, do you guys get a fixed upfront fee to cover a certain type of data, basically 24/7, or is it kind of a pay per usage, or how do these economics behind oracles work right now?
Yeah, so for core, it is a pay per usage, and for Fast, it's either like a mix of like SaaS, like monthly fee plus credit system.
That
So
makes
that then
sense.
depends on like how your feed is structured and like how many credits you pay for a single request.
So how does the burn scale up? Like what's the math? Like what's the numbers saying you've burnt 70 something thousand so far? Like with HIP3, like how much can we expect as all these new like projects are coming online? How much can we expect to get burnt? You know, is it like every millisecond data is requested, right? And some amount of Seda is burnt. Is it an exact amount of Seda, or is that pegged to the price of Seda, and there's a different amount burnt each time depending on the size of the price of Seda?
The latter. So the price of Seda will fluctuate the amount of Seda that's burnt in correlation to a single request. And the single requests will also the burn will probably be batched up in some sort of interval. And we'll probably not make it a consistent interval as well, just to prevent like front running. And we want to get good prices on the Seda we buy back to do with whatever we're going to do with it, right? Like, just take it out of circulation. So yeah, the correlation is basically initially, the more request and the more complex a request is, the more Seda will be bought back. And then there is some other mechanisms you can think of for some of these HIP-3 markets. Like HIP-3 markets make money. And so there's also the potential of having a rev share go to Seda instead of like a cost per query, for example. And that then also being used to, interact with the token to some extent.
Okay, and then you typically will just buy it as a company, like.
That's details. I'm honestly
not but the projects themselves will also have to buy portions of Seda to then use it in the burn mechanism.
For core, potentially, yeah. We try to abstract that part as much as we can, because it's actually a huge headache if you just want to build a product to like have to interact with a fluctuating token. So we try to make that part of this process so easy as possible for our end users, like making sure that it's DevX friendly. And so there are some teams that we're working with that are buying Seda, but they're doing it to stake it and then use the staking rewards to offset the cost, which I thought was quite brilliant.
That is brilliant.
So that they basically have like partially subsidized Oracle feed that's subsidized by helping us secure the network and locking up some tokens. So that's really nice. But in general, we want people to be able to use whatever asset they use, and we have like solvers in the middle that do have to buy Seda. So in the end, it is the project buying Seda, but it doesn't mean that they have to have it on their balance sheet.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
What are the projects currently building on Hyperliquid are you most interested in like getting integrated, or like are you opinionated about that at all, or are you just trying to serve any data and Oracle requests that are coming across?
Yeah, I mean, I have interest, but as a company, we're definitely like, we'll help anybody, and I like to do that. I find that fun. But of course, there is like, projects that I find particularly interesting for either philosophical reasons or whatever. Like the global compute index is something I like to bring up everywhere. It's just creative and cool. Like I haven't seen anything like that, right? It's like a reason why HIP-3 is cool. Same with the prediction market perps.
Maybe on the note of the compute index, could you use that as an example to kind of run through the entire process of like how the data gets sourced, how it gets validated, how it is brought on chain? Like what's the entire workflow behind that?
Yeah. Okay. So they deploy a program, or we deploy what we call data program, Oracle program to Seda. This is essentially a set of instructions that says, hey, query data from source A, source B, source C, and aggregate it in the following way. So it's a WebAssembly, so it's like a Rust script essentially, that compiles to WebAssembly. Set of instruction that says, hey, query data here. Those source A, source B, source C can be public sources or private sources, depending on if those private sources have some sort of integration with our network. And so that can be community ran, or we run it, or the data provider runs it. And so they make their data accessible to Seda. This now lives on Seda, this set of instructions. And when I want to access that data from, for example, a HIP-3 market, like I want to get the latest update, what I would do in the case of Fast is I would send an API request to the Fast API. The Fast API has this set of instructions. It executes it in the Seda VM, which is like our execution environment. It's like a computer in a computer that understands the set of instructions as it is fed to it. And this is just like an input output thing. So like it has the set of instructions living in the VM, and essentially it just says, hey, I want to have this queried, and then on the back end, like it queries all of the data, reports it back to the fast API node, and then performs all the aggregation on it and just returns the number. Or whatever output as it is specified, right? So that's the fast API. And then it signs it, so that like now you can prove on HIP3 or Hyperliquid that this comes from us. For core, it's a bit more complex. So instead of it going to the fast API, you send it through RPC to the Seda chain. Either you do or a solver does it for you. That solver then pays Seda for the request. It gets included in the block. We have a network of executors, which are very similar to the fast node, that then get paid to execute this binary, this Oracle program as well. And they then report it all back to the Seda chain. There it then goes through a second aggregation phase, we call the tally phase, after which that gets included into a block. And that block, or all the data that's finalized in that block gets batched, and that batch is then signed by the Seda validator set, and that can then be proven on any sort of destination chain. That's sort of like the end-to-end, quite in-depth flow of like how data flows through like both products.
I think Danny, are you still there? He might have a connection issue, but yeah, like what's the path ahead of Seda, or are there any other topics that we haven't covered yet so far?
What excites you about HIP3? What have you seen that's cool? Who should we talk to?
I mean, any kind of bringing TradFi assets on chain, especially these what you mentioned with the global compute indices, or like anything that, like, I don't think that the like 71st sports betting prediction market will be the next big thing. I mean, it's not an unlock. The on-chain UX is still quite clunky, to put it mildly. So I don't think that there's any specific edge. On the prediction market side, what I personally would consider interesting is anything that revolves around markets that are simply not accessible in a permission environment, even because they are politically unwanted or just like too complex to put on in an like untrusted setting where you do not have trustless infrastructure underneath, where you have like a very, very globalized index. I think so anything in the similar direction of the compute index is going to be interesting. Other than that, I mean, it depends on how strong of a bet do you want to take on Hyperliquid as now finally being the chain that is housing all of finance. I mean, Injective launched with the same vision. It's inarguably not at the forefront of attention anymore. I don't know if they'll manage to orchestrate a revival. I think in Asia they are still doing all right. They still have quite a bit of a community in South Korea, but yeah, I think generally, I think both as a like foundation behind a chain, but also as a project, it makes sense to be more expressive and opinionated about what you guys personally think will work and like grow in the space versus what you think will not. Like the whole like, oh, we have to be neutral at all costs. I think that age in crypto is over. And like many people who are like diehard believers in that, unless they already are a huge project that has a Lindy effect and a lot of leverage, like Ethereum to some extent can afford to be more credibly neutral and like unopinionated about things than others, because
not
they
worked well
already
this
have all
cycle
the
for
big
them, by
players
the
on
way.
there. So I
It
think
also
like
doesn't I mean, this doesn't really feel like Seda's vision to me, right? Like I see Seda eventually being just like this data marketplace to where like any project can go and purchase the data that they need and then like use the API to like plug it into whatever they're trying to do, right? And then Seda being like basically the only one who can do this, everyone's going to want that data. So they'll have this like open source marketplace where you can just go buy all these feeds. And now, Jasper, of course, I could be wrong, but that's sort of how I see like one of the visions. The other vision is sort of like this, like, you know, with like Hyperliquid teams and different teams, like you're going to do this like business to business. You're going to help them like get set up and like it be customized and the data be like exactly what they're looking for. But in other cases, there's this whole open source side of things where like any project should just be able to come and like buy what they need and get started and never talk to the Seda team once.
That's the dream, right? And I think that that's really the sort of like North Star for us, to build towards this future where nobody needs to talk to us and we're just a cornerstone of like building in crypto. But it takes some time to get there, and like we want to build a strong catalog of data that people can freely use if they want to come and like participate in this marketplace, right? And so that just takes some time to build up, and so we're working towards that for sure on one side, and then on the other side, like very happy to serve wherever we can serve now, and like I mean our team, like including me, is just extremely bullish on Hyperliquid and the eco at the moment, and that doesn't mean that we don't see that they'll ever be dethroned, because you see that all the time. But I mean, I don't see it happen quick, and we dig the vision. But yeah, like I said, like we also work with other companies, so to some extent it is yeah, I don't know, we want to incredibly neutral. I'm not sure, but our infra for sure is, right? I think that is sort of like the way to put it.
Do you guys view yourselves in direct competition with, let's say, Piff or Chainlink? Or is it more you all have your separate niches that you guys focus about on?
Well, maybe you could just take a second there and tell us about your partnership with Pith. You know, Pith is tweeting about you guys 5 times a week, and there's been all sorts of like collaboration there.
Yeah, so I'd say I tweeted the other day. Somebody asked me like, somebody said like we're competing with Pith, and then I said we're not competing with Pith, and then somebody asked who are you competing with, and I said competition is for losers. We own data programmability and distribution, and I truly do believe that. And so where Pith is really good at sourcing data and making it available and getting like super high quality data, vetting data, and it's just becoming like an extremely good data source. And then, yeah, I see Seda more as a distribution mechanism of the data and adding a programmability layer to the to Pith data that they don't have. And so, yeah, nothing has been announced, but it's definitely very symbiotic. Let's say, let's say that it's a very symbiotic relationship, and there is so much overlap between teams that both need Pith and Seda, especially on Hyperliquid right now, that yeah, it only makes sense to partner up. Like neither of us could serve those markets alone.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you can see it. Like, obviously, they wouldn't come and partner with you guys if you all weren't amazing. But second of all, like, they wouldn't partner with a competitor if they didn't, you know, think that it was like an awesome symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're not. We're both not in the charity business,
Right.
but yeah, no. So that's it. And so, Chainlink, I would put into like sort of like the incubant Oracle design. It is a little bit rigid, to put it politely, comparison to what we're doing. It's very much purpose built for like smart contracts on ETH that ingests price feeds, and I put Redstone in the same category. So yeah, that's sort of like how I categorize those. Like very good if you're a smart contract builder and you need like blue chip data without any hassle. Pith and Chainlink are easy ways to get that data into your into your smart contract. If you need anything more, but even then, I would say Pyth is a better oracle, just because their data is better. But it might be a little bit harder to land it on your chain. And then Seda is like, more of a programmability layer on top of it. And so if there's any data that Pyth doesn't have, but you know how to source it, you can use Seda. If there is any data that Chainlink or Redstone doesn't have, but you know how to source it, you can just write an Oracle program, use Seda. And if there is data that these people do have, but you want it to be like a vanilla feed is not enough, then you can use Seda to stitch together the feed of your dreams.
Bitcoin is, or Link is Bitcoin, Seda is like Solana. You know, it's like.
Have you read that before?
much
Because I have said that before.
Oh no, I haven't read that before.
Yeah, that is exactly like the programmability aspect, right? Like they only
Yeah.
do like one thing well, which is like, price feeds. Well is also subjective; it's quite slow and whatever. But
It's V1 for oracles, right?
exactly.
Seda is
exactly.
V3.
I think I have to look on my timeline and search back. It's like years old tweets, like how we are the Solana or I call it the Ethereum of oracles back then. But yeah, Solana is even better because it is way more performant than Ethereum.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Very
Sweet.
nice. Yeah, we're about to hit the hour. Are there any other topics we want to cover, or any top off points for the audience?
No, I feel like I said too much. I'll leave it here.
Leaked all the
I
alpha.
got all my questions answered, so I'm super stoked. Tons of things I was have been thinking about and like not fully put together if I know how it works, and now I feel like I'm much better to go out and show the world Seda more like effectively.
Awesome. Love
Very
to hear
nice.
it.
We are
Ammunition.
all of the audience who is also part of the DeFi Dojo is already looking forward to Danny 24/7 shilling Seda on the Saturday Dojo Unhinged shows.
Yeah, and
as he has done
man,
over the past weeks.
if you ever have time on a Saturday morning, Eastern time, be Saturday afternoon for you, but yeah, come hang out in there and talk to the DeFi Dojo bros about us as well. It'd be really cool.
Hell yeah, sounds great. I will remember that.
Very nice. Is there anywhere where people can find you? Any links we should include in the show description?
Yeah, if you're a builder, docs.seda.xyz. If you are interested to learn more, I think our Twitter is probably the best place for it. Is at Seda Protocol. My Twitter is at Jasper Flux, so Jasper and then FLUX. And then there's Discord and stuff on our website as well, if that's your jam.
Nice.
Sweet.
Was great having you on, and great convo with you, Danny, as well. And see you over the next couple of days.
Thanks, dude. Great
Awesome.
meeting you, Jasper.
Thanks. It was a pleasure, guys.